Let's get some practice with aliasing. So if you remember from last time or from a different point in this video series, we said that an alias is just another name for an object. So it's another name or a reference to another object. So what do I mean by that? I mean, let's say we have a point P1 equals new point, and we'll say that that is the point 3 comma 4, and then we're going to say point P2 is equal to P1. So what this doesn't do is assigns the points or the x coordinate of 3 and y coordinate of 4 to P2. That's not what's happening. It's not creating a copy of the object. Rather, it's just saying that, remember in our memory model that we have some P1 that references some point whose x is 3 and whose y is 4. When we say P2 equals P1, it just means that P2 is an alias or referencing what P1 references. Okay? Although this is kind of disingenuous to say, it's more like the arrow is like this. And the reason why it's important to make that distinction is because let's say later on in the program we do something like P1 equals new point, and then we say like 102. Okay? So now P1 doesn't point to this point anymore, or this instance of a point. It references, I'm trying to distinguish my words here, it now references a new one, right? So that means the x would be 100 and then 2 in this new one that it points to. Okay? But the question is, does the referenced does the reference aliased by P2 actually change? The answer is no, because it doesn't matter that P1 was changed. It does matter that, or rather, let me phrase it a different way. It doesn't matter that P1 changed. P2 was just an alias for whatever P1 was originally referencing. And even though P1 changed, that data still exists because P2 is an alias for it. Okay? So understanding that is extremely important, because we're now going to go through a series of examples where we talk about object aliasing and this idea of object composition. Okay? Composition is when you have an object that is part of another class, and we'll see that right now. So let's suppose we have these three classes right here. So we'll just go through them one by one. So the class A stores a string str. It has a constructor and a getter and a setter. So very straightforward. B is a class where we have a final instance of an A. It receives that A, assigns it to the instance variable, and then a getter. Okay? And then C is the same thing as B, it's just a different name. Quite literally, the only difference is the name of the class. Notice that all three of these classes have, or are rather, they're showcasing object composition, because all of them store objects as instance variables. A stores a string, which is an object. B and C both store instances of A's. Okay? So, now let's jump into this little example. So, we have a bunch of code here that we will get to in due time. But for now, I want you to consider what happens when we have the following statements. So, what do we do first? We first declare a final A variable. And the final doesn't really matter, it's just something I threw in there. And we say final A equals new A, and we pass it the string hello. Okay? Then we say B and C are new instances of B and C, where we pass A into those classes, or to those constructors. Okay? So if we draw this out, then let's see if I can put this up here correctly. There we go. So what are we doing here? We're saying that A is something here, so A points to some A with the string hello. And then we have a B, which has a B, whose A object points to, so let's clean up the drawing a little bit just to make our arrows very clear. So this B points to here, but then the A actually points to here, okay? And then C is the same way. So C also has an instance of A in it, so the C points to this, but the A points to this. Note that it's not pointing to the string, but rather it's pointing to the thing that A is pointing to. So the question is it true that B.getA, which is this thing, is the same as C's.getA? Okay? And there's no dot equals here, so we're only comparing for referential equality. And of course, this is going to be true because these two things both point to the same thing. So we do B.getA, which is just follow the link and we get A. Then we follow C's getA and we just follow the link and we get this. And we see that they both point to the same thing, so it must be assert equals that we put here. Okay? So the question rather is that what do we have to fill in for all of these blanks to make the assertions pass? Okay? And there's only two things it can be, either assert equals or assert not equals. Okay? So let's try the next one. So what happens if we say B.getA.getS compared to C.getA.getS? Okay? So this one's a little interesting. And it's interesting for the reason you might not expect. So the reason why this is interesting is because, well, let's first just follow the links and see what we get. So B.getA gets us this, and then getting its string will actually get us this thing right here. Okay? So then the question is, C.getA gets us to here, and then A.getS gets us to here. So it's asking, are the two strings referenced by the A object the same thing? And the answer is yes, but it's important to realize that this is not doing an object equality. Now, you may think it is, but remember that strings actually override the dot equals method. Okay? And remember that assert equals will always use the dot equals implementation of the object. But because strings compare characters based on lexicographical comparison, then this will just say, is the string hello equal to the string hello with a character by character comparison. Okay? So, and that is true. Hello, the string is equal to the string hello, so we're good. Okay? Now the question is, what if we do B.getA.set string to high? Okay? So what are we doing? We're saying B.getA, which gets us this, then set the string to be high. So we're going to change this to be high. Okay? We're going to change this to be high. Okay? Now the question is, are the two strings the same? Well, yes, because when we set that string in B.getA, that change persists across everything that references the A. So A's.getS changes, B's getA.getS changes, and C's getA.getS also changes. So all of them reference the same thing, therefore this should be an assert equals, and then we're done. Okay? And I'm pretty sure that this is actually the same test, so I'm not quite sure what I wanted to show off here. But let's change it just to see what happens if we were to do something like A.getS and C.getA.getS. So what happens if we change the object through another object and then see if something is if something persists? So what I mean is that let's say we do B.getA, which gets us, so we follow the link, we get to here, and we change the string to be howdy. So this string, instead of being hi, is now howdy, or whatever. Okay? Now we're asking, is a.getS the same as c.getA.getS? And yes, they are the same, because we say a.getS, follow the link, gets us the string, and then c.getA.getS, we follow the link, and we get the same string. So it doesn't matter where we change it, it's persisted across all instances of it. Okay? So, we're good with those tests. Now let's try these next 2 test cases. Okay? These next 4, actually. Or we'll just do one at a time. So, we're saying b2 equals new b with a. Okay? So, we're going to declare a b2 equals a new b with a inside of it. Okay? So, b2 references this, and then a references this. Okay? So, is this a, or rather, let me rewrite it, is this a the same as this a? And yes, they are, because we just pass it over as a reference. Okay? So, this would be assert equals, so if we run this, this should pass. And it does. Now the question is actually a very simple one. Is b equal to b2? Are these 2 references the same thing? And of course, no, they are not, because they're both pointing to distinct things in memory. So this should be assert not equals, or we run it again just to show you that it works. So we're good. And finally, let's do 2 more things where we say we're going to assign b to alias b2. So instead of pointing to this thing in memory, we're actually going to have it point to the thing that the thing that b2 currently points to. So we just draw a little arrow over to it. So now we ask, is the a pointed to by, or rather, is the a that we have circled in green here, this one, is that equal to b2's a? And the answer should still be yes, because nothing changed about a. And all we're doing now is we just said reassign to b to be an alias for b2, so nothing actually changed with regarding a. So this should be assert equals, so we can run it again. And now we're asking, do b and b2 reference the same thing? And yes, they do, because we can see the diagram here. So this should be assert equals, and we should be good to go. Okay? So when you're doing these types of aliasing things, or whenever you're messing with objects that involve composition, you should always draw a diagram like this. It really, really helps to show what things reference or point to other things, and what things are aliases for other objects.